go.
Hi everybody, welcome. We are here with Brian. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing fine. How are
Let's
you,
see.
Daphne?
I'm doing good outside of my little lighting issues I have going on.
Always something, right?
All right, so let's just jump right in.
Sure.
What made you want to become a director?
Well, you know what? I've been in the world of theater and film and television literally all my life. I was a kid, actor, did dinner theater when I was 11, and came out to Los Angeles at a fairly young, ripe age, looking for work, and started kind of started first of all with writing, and then ended up in television as a producer. And having come from an acting background, I started to see that I had a lot of the elements that I think are you need to have as a director. I love working with actors. I love the intimacy that you get from film as opposed to stage. I can get right up in your face. I don't have to kind of project what's going on. I can actually see it. And as a writer, I became very enamored of story. And those are elements that I think a great director has to have. I think you have to have an element of an understanding of the technical, but you also have to know how to work with people, how to how to direct an actor, how to give notes, and more importantly, you have to understand how that note is going to affect the overall picture of the story and how it's going to play out. So I became I spent most of my career, first part of my career as a writer, and then as a writer producer. And that's mainly where I came from. But I always kind of kept my hand out, not hand out. That's a different thing. I usually kept my hand in with acting a little bit. I did a lot of voice work, quite a bit, and so that was always on my periphery. So that kind of helped me, I believe, in having that connection to the performers. And then I also teach screenwriting, so I'm trying to, constantly learn and develop the story angle so that I can keep up with the kids. So that's the other thing I'm doing.
The days, modern days, it's not as
How quickly
easy.
it changes. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think the most important skills for a director to
Well,
have?
I think having great communication is probably first and foremost the most important thing. You can be great with camera, you can be great with actors, you can be, fabulous with lighting, and if you don't know how to get your vision into the head of someone else, you're lost because it is a communal activity. Very rarely, once in a while, you'll have a Bo, what's his name? Not Bo Brummel. What is that kid's name? Ah, it'll come to me. Who go off with a camera by himself and do a one man show and make it very interesting. But generally, it's a community. You're going out with a crew. You've got 40 people. You're a general basically, and you have to be able to communicate your vision of what you want to have happen, and yet be flexible enough to understand that if somebody is who knows more than you is giving you information, that the ears have to be as open as the mouth. And that's my feeling on that. So that's the
Yeah.
number one skill. It's in my opinion, it's a weave. It's not like that's, if you have that, you've got everything. I think you also have to have the other things. You have to have a story sense. You have to have the ability to understand what the process of an actor is and be able to give notes based on that. And then, you also have to know the technical. But, from my perspective, um, I expect my camera person, my DP, to know more about the camera than I do. I
Yeah.
expect the lighting guy to know more about the lighting than I do. I expect that, on and on and on. And I have to trust that I'm reaching out and bringing the right people into the team and that they understand my vision, that I can communicate to them. And if they have an idea that they think is better, that I'm open to it.
Yeah, it's always nice to have a team, and get ideas from other people. Sometimes you need an outside eye to, make things
Mhm.
right sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Often.
So, what kind of films have you directed so far?
Well, so far, I'm about to direct my first feature. I've done a feature-length documentary. I've done four, I think, short films. A couple of them have been, award-winning films. The others have not been submitted to festivals, but I think they probably do okay. My first short film starred an actor named Jason Schwartzman, who later on went on to do Rushmore, and now he's writing and acting as well. Jason Alexander, who's on Seinfeld. Um, I'm trying to think.
Seinfeld.
Yeah. Um,
I've seen that show. Oh my god, a couple of times. That comes on late at night.
uh-huh.
I've watched it. Kramer. I thought he's really funny.
Yeah.
And
No,
then
it's a
I
fun
like
show.
Jason Alexander in the show Friends when he did that episode in Friends.
Yeah. Well, he was in it. I'm trying to think who else. We had a young lady who was on The Nanny at the time. She was on that show. Rachel Chagall. She was on that for 5 years, 8 years, I think. I had the guy who played Norm on Cheers was anyway. It had a nice little cast, and Academy Award winner named Red Buttons. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he was also in this 12 minute, nobody getting paid, a little short that I did, and just had a fabulous time. Did win quite a few, festivals with it, and at that point I thought, okay, so I'm set now. I'll sit by and wait for the phone to ring for people to say, okay, Spielberg wants you to direct his next motion picture. And that didn't happen, so I went on to other things, and then eventually, got back to directing and love that. Really enjoy it. Enjoy the
Started
process.
watching his documentary the other night. I didn't get
Which
to finish it. I still have to go back in and finish watching it. The
Spielberg?
Spielberg
Hmm.
documentary. I think it's on HBO Max. I think that's what
Hmm.
it's on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like watching documentaries and learning more about people. That's why I decided to do things a little differently with the entertainment business that I own, because
Mhm.
I mean, all the focus, it always goes on actors after movies are done. And there's, it's a whole village.
Yeah, it
And
is.
a lot of those people, they don't get to actually speak about, what they've done, what they've got coming,
Mhm.
or anything set wise related to anything. And
Right.
I didn't think it was fair. And that's why I started doing what I was doing. I was like, well, I'm going to go the other route as far as the interview.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
No,
better.
there's so many important, one of the things that I preach is that you have to have an almost perfect film to have a success. You have to have a great writing, you have to have great acting, you have to have great directing, you have to have great music, you have to have great sound. Um, any one of those messes up and it can sink your boat. And it really is important that you have, cohesion, that you have people that know what they're doing, or that you have the ability to find a way to communicate. Again, back to communication from where I sit. But
So, what's your creative process like when you're writing?
when I'm writing, it's a little bit different than when I'm directing, because I don't put away the writer's hat, but it changes. When I'm writing, it starts off with what is the idea, what is the theme, what's the concept. I start with what is the question that I want to ponder in this particular story, and why, and what is the argument. In other words, I don't want to have just a one-sided argument. I want to have questions on both sides of an issue. And then the second thing is, how am I going to present that? That's the concept. So that you look at it and say, okay, this is how I'm going to present this. So it's not just beating people over the head with the theme. And then I start with a premise. What is, here's my main character. What are they doing? How do they, what is the problem? And how are they going to face that? And it's usually a single sentence that I put together that includes the main character, who their opponent is, but more importantly, what is the event? And what I mean by that is not just, what happens moment to moment, but what is when you walk out of the theater, or walk out of your living room now, and talk to someone and say, and someone, I said, I saw this great film, and say, what is it about? And if you can generally, you can sit there and say, well, it's about this incredibly big shark that is running around, and it's trying to eat people off the coast of Amity. And you can start to then expound on that. That's the basic idea. So that's the event of the movie. Do other things happen? Sure, a ton of other stuff happens, but that's the main core. So that to me is the event. Those three elements, and then the fourth element that I try to focus on the premises, pardon me, is is the genre? What is the entertainment value? In other words, if I'm going to do a horror film and I can't get you to go, oh, that's, that tickles me in a place I don't want to be tickled. If I can't get that from the premise, then I need to rework that premise. And I need to get to a place where if I'm doing something that's moving, you go, oh, and if it's a love story, you're feeling the romance. If it's a comedy, it's funny. You want to have all that in this one sentence. It's a daunting task. I don't always succeed, but that's what I go for. And then once I've got that, then I go from there to, uh, uh, I actually, can I plug a book? I wrote a book on screenwriting called
Process.
Process to Product. Or right there you go.
So everybody's got to go out and buy this book.
Yeah. Uh,
You're going to learn something.
you might. I did. I learned something. And I break down screenplays into 12 guideposts, which are these moments that allow you to kind of move through a story from point A to point Z through the entire film based on structural elements. And I've been teaching screenwriting for a long, long time. For the last 17 years, I've been the lead faculty for Boston University in Los Angeles. And then prior to that, I was at UCLA, and prior to that, at a place called Writers Boot Camp, which is a very popular professional screenwriting.
Yeah, I've heard about the boot camp.
Yeah. I was there for about 10 years, 6 years, 6 years, mainly teaching sitcom writing. And I did
Sitcoms.
that one. Yeah. Which I was a writer for a sitcom called Blossom. With,
Oh, Mayim. I
yeah,
love Mayim.
yeah, me too.
She is awesome. I mean, the fact that she is a real doctor, she
Scientist.
hasn't came out of that. I mean, yeah, she was on the Big Bang Theory and she was funny, on the
Mhm.
Big Bang Theory, but she kept true to everything,
Yeah.
as far
Yeah.
as what she really is.
Yeah, no, she's a bright lady. And, she just directed her first feature film.
Oh, did
Uh,
she?
yeah. With Dustin Hoffman and trying to remember who else, but Dustin Hoffman's in it. That's enough. She's doing that, and that'll be coming out, I think, probably maybe over the summer. But very bright lady, very capable, and so I worked on that. And at that time, I was teaching at Writers Boot Camp for 6 years, and then UCLA, and then this, and the book came out of all of my teaching. And one of the things that happened is, I followed different gurus as young writers do, and I started with Sid Field, and he had the 3-act structure, and then I listened to Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, and then I listened to Robert McKee and his workshops, and John Truby, and I went to all these different courses, and all of them had some great elements, and I kind of took little pieces of each of those and came up with my kind of unified theory of screenwriting, my own concept of how you go through it. So that's how I work through a screenplay. So I go from those 12 guideposts into an outline. And for me, the outline, if you do a good outline, it is so much a time saver that you can then sit down and really what you're thinking about is just dialogue. And there are some amazing writers who do not outline. Stephen King is one. Um, William Goldman is another one that did not outline. But Goldman used to do research for up to a year and a half before he would start writing.
Yeah.
He may not be outlining, but he certainly knows his story forward and backwards. So that helps an enormous amount. But the one thing that I found is that a lot of the different people that I studied with and looked at and read, it was either very restrictive, like, okay, you do something on page 1, 7, 9, 15, or it was kind of ethereal, it was kind of ephemeral, like, oh, the hero goes here and meets a wizened person. All great and all applicable. But in practicality, I found it difficult to find a way that you could go through a story and yet still have an opening for inspiration to be able to say, hey, you know what? I got a great idea. What if my character goes here instead? And still be able to get back to the main story somewhere along the line. So that was kind of what I did. I put these kind of buoys out in the water that allow you to swim the course. You can go check out an island over there and then come back.
That's about what it is too in your writing. Like we just finished well, it was about 2 months ago we finished the script for the Shattered Dreams movie.
Mhm.
And already we did a small read with just a couple of little actors that I'd want to put in there, the other night with the directors. And we already thought of 10 new scenes to throw in. So I'm like, great, now we're doing a revision. But we're
Yeah,
not
sure.
revising, we're just adding because I mean the script is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean writing when you're writing, it's hard. Even when I went to school for criminal justice, because I did it online, and
Hmm.
we were writing, oh my gosh, 20 to 25-page papers every 2 to 3 days. Yeah.
A lot. That's a lot. Yeah.
Yes, it was. And it was so nerve wracking because
Hmm.
you're sitting there thinking of things that you want to put in this paper, but you have to stay true to the facts of the cases that
Right.
are involved. It's just
Yeah. I can imagine.
overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah, it can
So,
be. So
okay,
that's
tell
why
us
I think.
about your feature film.
So yeah, that's kind of an interesting story. So some I directed a pilot for television that probably is never going to get finished for a number of circumstances that are beyond my control. But some of the people that were involved in that came to me and asked me if I'd be interested in directing a feature film, and I read the script and I asked if it had been funded, and they said yes. And I said, well, great. What? How? What's your budget? And they said $20,000 or $30,000. And I went, okay, let me take a look at it. And I read the script, and I went, well, on the first 3 pages, there's your 20 or 30,000. How are you gonna do the rest? So I came up with an idea that was based on the same premise, but took it basically from the beginning and reworked it and came up with an idea. It is a psychological thriller werewolf movie, actually. And I don't want to get too detailed because I want
Yeah,
to
I
give it, but
know.
it's a very contained story. It takes place in a very few locations, very few actors. So very much like the Bloomhouse model. If you're familiar with them, that's their concept. They do everything under 5 million, and although we're nowhere near that budget, we are a little bit bigger than the 20 or 30 we first started out with. So I
Yeah,
hope to be.
going from 20,000 to a couple million. Yeah. Yeah.
I've done as a producer, slash writer. I've worked on films starting at 2.5 million and working my way down. I went 2.5 million, a million, 550,000, 250,000, 50,000. So I've done a whole range of different movies that, and really it's so much of it is about what preparation you do and how ready you are when you go to shoot as to how well a small budget film can go off. So we're looking right now at really doing some intense preparation. So probably we're still in the funding phase, but it's
Mm.
looking like that'll be finished maybe this week. If it is, I would probably start shooting in April, and it's probably going to be a 10 or 15 day shoot. We're still negotiating that, but we're going to spend a lot of time doing previs and also rehearsing with the actors, so that when we get on the set, we're not sitting there going, okay, where do we put the camera? And you know, hey, what do we want to do? What's the action here? We want to know so that we're not spending a lot of time talking about, how do we move through time and space at this moment. We know, okay, camera's here, let's go. And then the actors have already had their questions asked, and still allow them and everybody else to have input and inspiration if something fantastic comes up.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that rehearsing definitely is important versus jumping in and, hey, let's all meet at this location and start filming.
Yeah,
And
and unfortunately, the lower budget projects tend to skip that
yeah,
because it costs money, but it saves you so much in the long run. And it's a big difference between sitting with 3 actors that you have to pay, or 5 actors that you have to pay, or the 45 people that you have to pay with your crew and the cast. So, or 20, even if it's 25. It's a different deal. And it just, when you're trying to make your days, and your days are 10 pages each day, that's a tough call. So you really want to be able to kind of hit the ground running. So I'm a big believer in that.
yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
what's your favorite genre of films?
I'm kind of partial to fantasy. I've written just about everything you can imagine. I was the I was the CCO of a company that focused on horror films,
Mm.
and that was there. There's a lot of positive to be said about that. One of the things about horror films is they're the lowest entry into the industry with the highest return. So films like Get Out, which are made for less than $5 million, and goes off to make 300 million. And sure, that pales in comparison to Avatar, but Avatar's $300 million, and if it makes 2 billion, it's still mathematically, it's still more percentage wise, it's a bigger win when you're doing something like that. So that was really an interesting thing, and I do quite a bit in that genre. But I do everything. I've got a I wrote a novel that's out now that's a murder mystery. It's based on a screenplay I'd written. And when COVID hit, I sat down and went, "Oh, do I want to do another script? What do I want to do? Nothing seems like it's going to be shot for a while." I said, "I wonder if I could take a screenplay and use it as the basis for an outline and create a book out of that." And that's what I did. And it's getting very nice reviews and doing very well. And I'm hoping that I'll kind of sneak in the back door that someone will look at the book and go, let's make a great movie. And then I
What's the
can
name of
say,
the book?
"Hey, I happen to have a screenplay." I'm sorry.
What's the name of the book?
It, well, strangely enough, I just so happen to have a copy. I don't know what the odds are. I happen to have a copy with me. It's called Conceptus.
Conceptus. There you go. I
Yeah.
love murder mystery. My favorite, actually. I mean, I love doing horror movies. I've done enough of them uh, because they're fun. They're
They
fun,
are.
and you have a lot of fun making them. There was one little set I'll tell you about that we
Mhm.
were on, and I did it. Well, none of the women, they needed somebody who would actually wear lingerie on set. I'm like, okay, I have no problem with that. But a lot of people turned it down just because you had to. And my hair is blonde. So they were afraid to put the blood all over my hair. I'm like, it's okay. It's going to wash out. It's fine.
You hope it will.
I
Yeah.
just told them, go ahead and do it. I'm
Yeah.
game. I'm always game for anything. I'm one of them people where let's do it. I grew up with eight brothers. So you know what I
I
mean? Always game.
love it.
So, Conceptus, I'm definitely going to have to buy that book. Everybody's going to have to buy that book. I'm going to
Please.
tell them right now to buy the book.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I hope making movies. I'd like to continue directing. Um, one of the things I'd like to do is, keep growing as an artist and keep growing as a director and keep growing as a writer. So I I hope that what I'll be doing is continuing the process that I'm on now, the path I'm on now, which is to direct films, to create projects, to produce other people's work, to direct other people's work, but to really have my own body of work as well. And I do a lot of different things. I sometimes joke I do everything but catering, so on a film. So I try to wear a lot of different hats, and I consult with different companies in film finance, and I'm hopefully going to be working with some of those companies down the road, both the finance films and also to write and direct and produce for them. So I'm doing all that stuff, and I want to continue writing novels. I'm finding that kind of an interesting process. I love the immediacy of screenwriting is great. You focus on what is going to be on the screen. I don't have to worry about what's inside the character's head. I mean, I have to know it, but I can only really focus on what's the audience going to get.
Yeah.
And if you have somebody sitting in a window seat looking out, you can't really think about them for the audience perspective, thinking about, oh, my dog died 3 years ago, and I really feel bad about it. And yet you can do that in a book,
Yeah.
and I can get into what's going on in their head, and I can explore that character that is just in one scene in the movie. I can kind of see, well, what's his life like? What's that person do when this person's off doing their world? What. So I get to go a little bit deeper into each character, and I really enjoy that process. And I'd love to have that kind of a kind of a, what is it, quid pro quo, where I write a book, it becomes a movie, I direct a movie, and keep
Yeah.
going that way.
So, okay, I'm going to ask you a question. I know that I pretty much, kind of went over a little bit, but this I always love to hear. What is the funniest thing that's ever happened to you on a film set?
Okay, that's actually that's a pretty good. There are a couple of them. Um, that's between two crew members getting into a fight in New York City, uh, and that was unusual. I don't know if that was the funniest. I think the funniest is I when I first came to Hollywood as an actor, I was walking down the street and a guy came up to me. I had been here maybe 3 days, and a guy came and said, "Hey, are you an actor?" And I went, "Yeah." And he said, "Want to be in a movie?" And I thought, okay, it's either porn or a snuff film. That's the only two, right? I mean, why is he approaching me? And I said, well, and he said, "Here's my card." And he gave me a card. I looked at it. I had a roommate at the time, and I brought it back. And I said, "Look, this guy, he gave me his card, and it's with this company called Bill Bird Production." He said, "Bill Bird, they do nature films like Wild Kingdom type stuff." And I went, "They do?" He said, "Yeah, but they're a real company." I went, "Oh, okay." So I called them up and they said, "Yes, we're legit. We're doing this movie. Love to have you come in." And it turned out I'm a fairly height challenged person. I'm about 5'4", and they needed someone short that they could build a fake head on top of and then decapitate them. And it was for a movie called Faces of Death. And Faces of Death is a cult classic, and I'll explain what happened. So they took a mold of my face and shoulders, and they made an Arab looking individual out of me, and had three heads with gelatin, red gelatin for the neck, and a tube that went up through the neck. And then I had a little pump that I would squeeze that, you know, shot blood. So they had fake arms that were these long dangly arms that were tied behind my back, fake head, and they flew us out to a place in the middle of New Mexico, just the desert. And I'll never forget. I went to the airport, LAX, and I look around and there's this like a little kiosk, and there's nobody there. And finally, this guy goes, "Hey, you going to New Mexico?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, come on." I said, "He's I'm the pilot." "Oh, okay." We go out, and there's this little seven, maybe 8-seater little plane, and it's me and one other person. And I sit down, and he turns to me and says, "You got to get all the way in the back, or we'll never get off the ground." And I went, "Oh my God, what am I getting myself into?" So we flew to New Mexico, got there, got the hotel. Next day, 120 degrees in the shade, and we go out to the location. It's supposed to be an Arab village, nomads with tents, and they explain, "Okay, you're gonna be here." I'm sorry, it's such a long story. I'll try and pick
No,
up the
you're
pace.
fine.
They have the guy's going to ride up on a horse. He's got a sword. Now, two guys are going to bring you out. They're going to kneel you down on this chopping block. He's going to say, "Now you need to shrug so he doesn't chop your head off." And he's going to chop through the neck. And you got to be pumping the blood. Start pumping the blood right away. So, okay, pump blood, walk out. Got it. Okay. So they say they've got 7 cameras and all around this place. And it's, like I said, burning hot. And you're talking about blood coming all over you. They say action, and out comes this horse, and I hear the guy again. They say, "Okay," they're dragging me over. They throw me down on the chopping block, and then the guy says, "Okay, now," and I shrug, and he's swoosh, and I'm pumping furiously, and over a bullhorn, and I say, "Fall over, fall over." I went, "Oh," and I fell over. I forgot to fall over. And cut, cut, cut. Now they only had 3 heads. So now the second head comes, and we go through the process, and they go through the thing, and I say, "Okay, and action." And the guy rides up, and they take me out, and they throw me down over the chopping block, and they say, "Now," and I shrug, and now I'm pumping, and he chops off my head, and this time I remember to fall over, but the tube hadn't been stuck far enough out,
Oh,
so no blood comes out. It just goes all over me. So I'm literally now covered in this syrup, red syrup from my waist up. And they go, cut, cut, cut. All right, we got to do it a third time. Well, gelatin at 120 degrees starts to melt. So now the third time I've got the head on, and now my head is doing this as I'm walking because the gelatin is melting. And we get back, and they, action, they pull me over, and they throw me down over the block, and I'm pushing the blood furiously, and I shrug and whack, and I'm pumping, and I hear, "Damn it, fall over, damn it." Oh, I forgot to fall over. Cut. And that was it. They couldn't do it again. They only had 3 heads. So if you ever see the movie, there's a guy and they go chop and they cut. because I never fell over. But that was probably the funniest thing that around. And
I'm
years
gonna
later,
have to watch that now though, and I'm gonna be looking at the neck like, wait a minute.
let me tell you, for years, if you go online and look up Faces of Death, there are sites that are dedicated to whether or not it's real, because it was presented as real footage of death from around the world. And
Wow.
I remember when it first came out, I called one of my local video stores and said, "Hey, do you have Faces of Death?" "No, we don't carry that crap." It's like, oh, okay. Jeez. So, and years later, I was on, I think it's Gower Sunset Studios or Raleigh Studios. I can't remember, one of those two. And Billboard Productions was there. And I went, I wonder. And I walked in. I said, "Hi, did you do Faces of Death?" They said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you happen to have a copy?" And they said, "Yeah. Sit down on this moviola." And they had it on an old moviola. And I sat there and watched my scene and went, "Oh yeah, that's me. Okay." And I was killed in Faces of Death. So
Have you
uh,
done Horror Hound for that movie?
have I done which now?
Horror, it's called Horror Hound.
No.
It's
Mm-mm.
the
No.
where all the horror movies go around. I actually got a press pass and I went there and did an article on Horror Hound, and they have all those cool old movies, and I'd seen the people who did the movie the
Mm.
Strange, or
Uh-huh.
the Strange.
The thing. Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean it was really cool. That was my first time ever being there. Maybe they could
Uh-huh.
put that in there somewhere.
I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah, definitely. So, do you have any advice for aspiring film directors?
Yes, sure. Of course I do. Uh, don't stop studying. As if you want to be a director, get on a set.
Yeah.
Um, get as much info, read as much as you can, watch as many movies, television, film as you can, and also study. If you can get a class, whether it's in cinematography, take an acting class. Even if you don't want to act, if you want to be a director, take an acting class. Understand how an actor uses their instrument to filter your words or the writer's words. And then also think about what your strengths and weaknesses are. So when you're a director, you want to I know I'm good with story, but I'm a little bit, I need somebody to help me with production design. I don't really want to focus on that. You have to know what your limitations are. And the other thing is work on your communication skills. Understand how to communicate your ideas to people in a way that's palatable. One of the things that I'm sure, you've heard, and every director has heard, actors hate being given line readings. You know, to say the line like this, they hate that. Many do. Some don't. Some are like, okay, tell
I
me how to do it.
actually don't. When
Some
I
do
do
and
this,
some don't.
but I try
It
to make sure I stay on point. And I mean, I've trained with some of the best out there in LA, even though that I am here. And
Mhm.
my daughter, she's actually going into voiceover, which
Okay.
you do, but she's real big on animation because
Mhm.
she had a part where she could have been Wednesday Adams in a movie.
Oh.
But when she got face to face with the director over the meeting, she kind of locked up because she didn't want to be on camera. So
Mm.
we had to pass on that. But with her drawing and the animation, I told her, I was like, you're going to have to, whether you want to or not, you're going to have to take acting classes, because
Mhm.
just because you're a voiceover artist, you're acting. They can
Right.
tell
Sure.
you're not reading,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. 100%.
Training is
And
definitely important.
training is important, but getting on the set, being open to learning as much as you can. If you can follow another director, follow them around. And think about, you do want to know about camera. You do want to know about lights. You really want to know a little bit about everything. And I've tried to do that in my career. I've tried to do, a little bit. Editing is also a great place to start
I
as a
hate
director.
editing.
It's so important because it's the editors are the ones that look at it and say what stays and what goes. And when you're, as a performer, you're just doing your thing. And the editor has to look at it and say, this isn't necessary. So even the writer, writes things that they go, well, either for time or because of, story or movement or pacing, this has to go.
Yeah.
And, you have to learn not to be too precious about your work because sometimes as a writer or as an actor, You are not in control. And the last piece of advice I would say, and this kind of goes back to something we are talking about earlier, and actually in my book on the reason it's named Process to Product. I think one of the biggest mistakes that writers, producers, actors make is they try and aim for something. And what I mean by that is, I had a film school that was interested in me teaching ask, how do you write an Academy Award winning film? And my response is, you don't write an Academy Award winning film. You can't. You write the best film you can write, the best script, and maybe it is wonderful and people love it and it gets nominated for an Academy Award. But if you set out to try and write an Academy Award winning script, you're going to do exactly what your daughter did. You're going to get tight, you're going to clutch. And it's important to understand that you have to kind of find your core, your center, to understand what is the story you want to tell, the way you want to tell it, and then be open to other people's advice. But that's where you want to start. And from that point, you want to think, how do my characters behave? And how do I pull the strings in a way that gets the audience to understand their motivations, what they do, their actions and behavior? So understanding psychology is important, understanding behavior is important, but more importantly, you should be focused on the process and not the product. What do I do from point A to point B? Not, boy, I hope the audience loves it. Boy, I hope I win $1 million. Boy, I hope it makes three. You're not in control of any of that. I hope it gets great reviews. You can't control that. You don't have the ability to say, I've written this screenplay and I want it to get great reviews. You're setting yourself up for a terrible disappointment, possibly. Maybe not, but possibly. So focus on doing the best work you can do. Don't focus on what is the end product going to be. Are
Yeah,
people going to like it? Are they going to give you reviews? That's the biggest piece of advice I can give you.
I agree. I mean, I completely agree with all of that. And it's funny you said psychology because I mean, what the guy who trained me, he is a director out there actually.
Mhm.
He's big on psychology, but my major for, it was criminal
Mhm.
justice, it was crime scene investigation and forensic psychology. And I
Yeah.
had read books before I even went into that, about
Hmm.
psychology and then taking that because I wanted to be a profiler, a forensic
Right.
profiler. And you have to learn behavior. You have to.
Hmm. Yeah.
And a lot of time you can catch it though, just by meeting people, what how their behavior is.
Sure. Yeah. And it's a skill. It's a part of the craft. It really is. Because you have to understand, one of the biggest things is, and this goes back to the writing side more than the directing, but you want to be able to have characters behave in a way that is unexpected but believable.
Yeah.
So you want people to do things you go, oh, I didn't see that coming, but you also don't want to go, why on earth would they do that? Why would that? And there are tons of examples I can give you, but that's one of the things that you as an artist, as a writer and a director are looking for, as an actor as well. As an actor, you want to have those moments that are motivating the arbitrary, taking something that you know is something that you wouldn't expect a person to do, but still being able to trace why they came to that behavior.
Yeah. Okay. So one more question as
You
far
are
as this. This has nothing to do with film, actually.
okay.
What are some of your hobbies besides industry related things?
Well, I speak Japanese, so I study that a little bit. I'm a martial artist, so I spend a lot of time uh, doing that. I still compete and I teach both judo and jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which is similar. And I'm now foraging into refereeing competitions, but I still compete in judo and jiu-jitsu. Um, those are probably my biggest. Is there anything else I do? I used to collect coins a little bit, but that's haven't done that recently. Those are probably my biggest. My
My dad
biggest.
does that.
Yeah,
He's a big coin collector. He loves coins.
yeah, I love coins. They're fascinating. Yeah.
I just
But yeah,
never understood it. I mean, granted, I know if you sit on the coins, they eventually become worth something, but I'm just like, why do you keep going and buying all these coins,
Well, I mean, it's kind of like a little bit like baseball cards in the hope that you buy, you get that Ty Cobb and it's worth $100,000. But it's not only that, but there's kind of a fascinating way of kind of marking history with coins. You
Yeah.
kind of you get a coin that, I mean, there are so many interesting coins that nobody's, you poll 1,000 people, they've never even heard of it, like the Flying Eagle cent, or that we did we had a 2 cent and 3 cent pieces. There are those kind of things that nobody ever never heard of. We
Yeah.
had a $50 gold piece at one point. We had a $3 gold piece. We had fractional gold, little pieces of gold, and it's just fascinating to me. That's part of the allure to me. Money also, that's nice too,
Yeah.
um, but I haven't done it for many years. But I'm like I said, I'm very big in martial arts and do that quite a bit.
I did hear that
Mhm.
somebody had a penny. Oh man, when was this? Like 2 years ago? And it was a misprint or
Mhm.
it was from a different, and it sold for over $1 million. When
Yeah,
did you get
the
rid of that?
misprints. I don't know that specific coin off the top of my head, but that's a whole different. That's like a subset of the numismatics.
Yeah.
It's that's the error collections. They tend to be very rare,
Yeah.
and if you get the right one, and it's so much about condition and how close to being proof it is, perfect. And then what happens is they have quality control, so they when something's misstruck, they'll throw it out. So it's usually those don't get if one slips through, it's very rare. So
Yeah.
to find a mismarked coin, people get all excited about it. And I don't know why, but they do. That was never something that interested me so much. There are a couple of coins way back where they would do a double strike, and it would get just a little bit like the D would have two Ds instead of one,
I
and those
remember
are
those.
yeah, those would be very expensive coins, but and very valuable collecting. But it also, they also, like everything else, like stocks or anything else, or art or they can go down too. So you can spend a lot of money on one and then go watch it as it goes down and down and down and rise. So, but I think overall do tend to be a pretty good investment.
All right. Well,
But I'm not an investment broker, so I can't. I'm not giving professional advice. Anyway, okay. Yeah,
we don't work for the stock market. Please don't
that's
contact
right.
us.
Exactly. I can't advise you on your coin purchases.
So, do you have any big plans coming up for the holiday?
Hopefully, getting my movie funded is the biggest plan. Um, Other than that, just the writing, and I am. What else am I working on right now? I am working on two other novels. The sequel to my first one. The conceptus is the character is a woman detective named Laura Drummond, and it's hopefully going to be a series of books about her. And I'm in the second one now, and then I also have one of my fantasy movies that I'm turning into a novel as well. And then hopefully I start back teaching in January for Boston University, and I also teach at a place called Stage 32. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Heard of that.
Stage 32 is an interesting group. They are a kind of, if you can imagine, a marriage between an education site and Facebook for the film and entertainment industry. So it's a ton of people. They have great classes. Alex Sokolow, who's an Academy Award winning writer, has classes. His brother Sam is one of the main educational directors there, and he also is a producer that's done a ton of stuff. He did the series, I think it was on the History Channel, called Genius, which was where they each season they take a specific individual. Like one year it was Pablo Picasso. They did a season of. And they did one Aretha Franklin, and they did so they take different people that are geniuses and follow them in whatever aspect and follow them for do their life for a year. And he's one of the directors. So it's a very interesting place. If you're interested in filmmaking and you want a place to get help and education and network with people, it's a great place to go. Highly recommend it. But I will be back teaching there and at Boston University starting in January. Hopefully, April, I'll be shooting my movie. Um, and then,
Your holiday sounds like mine, Brian.
yeah,
It's where everybody else is going to be off doing what they do for Christmas. And then that gives you enough time to work and get completely caught up.
hopefully I'll clean my office. That's the other thing. If I could just get my office straight. And then also in January, I will be competing in a couple of judo competitions and jiu-jitsu competitions and stuff
That's
like that.
awesome.
I'm busy.
Well, I want to say thank you for coming on.
Thank you
Definitely. I
for
love
having me.
doing these videos and getting to know people better. And I also want to say happy holidays, Merry Christmas.
You enjoy the coming new year.
Yeah, yeah. I don't ever
I
think
can't
about
believe
that.
2023. I don't know what happened. I was
One
just
more
standing around.
birthday
Now it's 2020.
closer.
What happened? Yeah.
And
Well,
then,
thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I hope you'll
no
have me back.
problem. Hopefully we do this again, definitely. And we're going to say bye to everybody. Thank you for watching. Merry Christmas. Stay safe and happy holidays, everybody.
They told you that we can't be together, but I don't care what they say. You gave me the most beautiful love. How could they take that away? Darkness came and it covered my heart. Why did you let them tear us apart? In my dreams, I'm holding you. Every night until I do. Remember the time that we met up in Rio. Everywhere that we looked, there were dreams. Darkened skies have appeared over me. When you told me our love couldn't be. In my dreams, I'm holding you. Every night until I do. Every day I long for you. Every second missing you. Remember that night when you whispered to me.